It is the monarch that is the key to this, and the constitution that underpins the monarchy.
Sometime in early 2026, 5 specific names quietly vanished from official royal records. No palace statement, no friendly leak to the press, just a sudden deafening silence where a presence used to be. But the real shock wasn't who was erased, it was who erased them. Princess Anne executed the purge, and the person who gave her the quiet nod to banish his own wife's family completely? King Charles himself. This wasn't palace housekeeping. This was a bloodless execution, the midnight erasure. Here is something that should be impossible within the most heavily monitored family in the world. In the freezing early months of 2026, 5 prominent individuals closely connected to the Parker Bowles family vanished from the official royal records. There was no formal announcement, no royal decree read aloud, and no carefully worded palace statement handed out to the eager journalists. There was just an absence, a sudden, glaring absence where a heavy presence used to be. That detail alone would typically be the entire story. But it is not the real story here. Royal rosters, elite patronage lists, household records, and highly restricted duchy accounts do not update themselves. Someone in a room has to decide who stays and who goes legally. Someone has to weigh the brutal optics, carefully consider the political timing, and make the final, devastating call. Here's the strangest part about how this execution unfolded. It wasn't the British public who noticed the purge. The public had absolutely no idea it was happening. It was the obsessive individuals who tracked these obscure lists for a living. Veteran royal correspondents, deep palace watchers, and forensic researchers who cross-reference household employment records the way some people obsessively follow football scores, spotted the sudden, glaring gaps in the digital paperwork. They began making quiet phone calls to their inside sources. What came back wasn't a standard palace denial. It was total, absolute silence. If you know anything about how the royal world operates behind closed doors, you recognize what that means. Inside royal circles, silence is a distinct kind of confirmation. A loud denial is simply a statement you can challenge, but silence is like a heavy oak door being quietly locked in your face. And 5 doors had just been firmly closed. Please picture how bizarre and terrifying that scene really is. We are so accustomed to royal news arriving as a massive, orchestrated spectacle. A crowded balcony, a golden carriage, a severe statement formally read out on the cold palace steps. This purge was the exact opposite of a spectacle. It was a calculated subtraction. Somewhere in a quiet, heavily guarded office, a master set of financial and patronage records was digitally updated. A few highly specific lines of text were quietly and permanently deleted. The only trace of the violence was a tiny digital gap that a handful of obsessive researchers noticed weeks later. There was no fanfare, and there were no obvious fingerprints, or at least that is how it was meant to appear to the outside world. Honestly, that is exactly what tipped off insiders that this particular move mattered more than anything else that decade. In this ruthless world, the bigger the decision, the quieter it tends to be made. The loud events we see on television are simply theater for the masses. The real bone-crushing power moves happen in total silence, in the tiny edits that nobody is supposed to catch. So who was actually removed from the beating heart of the royal machine? Let's be incredibly specific because the names absolutely matter. Tom Parker Bowles would be the first name you might recognize. Camilla's only son, he is a successful food writer, a published author, and a minor television personality. He spent 20 years carefully building a public profile that appeared, on the surface, to be entirely his own. Much of it was his own hard work. However, it's easy to overlook that this supposed independence was always, undeniably, heavily funded by his connection to the royal family. His success was fueled by quiet access to the right rooms, elite events, and untouchable people, all of which traced directly back to his mother's elevated position inside the palace. It didn't matter if anyone ever said it out loud, it was the invisible currency he spent every single day. Then there's Laura Lopes, Camilla's only daughter. She maintains a much lower profile than her brother, but is no less woven into the royal fabric. She has consistently appeared at exclusive royal events and has maintained warm relationships with senior palace staff. She has smoothly navigated those terrifyingly exclusive spaces, benefiting from the unquestioned institutional goodwill that comes with being the queen consort's child. Behind Tom and Laura, 3 more significant names from the wider Parker Bowles network reportedly lost their royal footing as well. They instantly lost their elite patronages and quiet advisory roles. those incredibly soft, highly lucrative appointments that never make the front pages when first handed out. They barely cause a ripple when they are suddenly and violently taken away in the dark. And that, by the way, is the entire point of how this was executed. It is infinitely easier to quietly suffocate someone's influence and remove them from a list when absolutely nobody in the public is actively watching. The 20-year illusion. I keep returning to one specific detail that changes the way we view the brutality of this entire royal purge. Consider what it truly took to establish the 5 names of Parker Bowles within such a rigid institution in the first place. Charles and Camilla were married in April 2005 in a highly controversial civil ceremony at the Windsor Guildhall. The public's reaction at that time was, to be brutally honest, extremely mixed at best. A significant portion of the country still firmly associates Camilla with the tragic and highly public collapse of Charles and Diana's marriage. To many, she was the enemy, the outsider. In response, the palace communications team launched a massive, lengthy, and painstakingly careful public rehabilitation campaign. This effort cost millions and took decades of relentless spin. A crucial part of that expensive initiative involved normalizing the Parker Bowles family's presence within royal spaces. Slowly, Tom and Laura began appearing at minor events. Their names started to show up in reputable social columns, charity brochures, and palace records. Over 2 agonizing decades, they gradually became permanent fixtures in royal life. While they were never officially designated as working royals or permitted to wave from the famous Buckingham Palace balcony, the guards consistently recognized them, and they were fully integrated into the royal framework. This extensive campaign took 20 long years of effort to establish. In stark contrast, what Princess Anne did to them in a single moment took only a fraction of that time. It invites reflection on how lopsided this situation is. It takes 2 decades to build an ironclad institutional presence, yet one decisive act from the right person can dismantle it overnight. One specific detail stands out vividly and transforms the situation from simple palace housekeeping into something more profound. Princess Anne's own children, Peter Phillips and Zara Tyndall, were never placed on the official royal payroll. Anne made this deliberate choice when they were very young. She insisted they have no royal titles and no reliance on public palace resources to support their lives. Her direct instruction was both harsh and fair. They needed to build their own lives independently, and they succeeded. Peter pursued a career in standard sports management, while Zara became a highly successful Olympic equestrian. Neither of them ever depended on their royal connections for personal income or public standing. Now consider what this means in the current context. Princess Anne imposed this demanding standard on her own children decades ago, requiring them to struggle. In applying the same rigorous criteria to someone else's privileged children, she sent a clear, powerful message. This is not a trivial dispute or a petty, vindictive move over family disagreements. It reflects the actions of a formidable woman making a significant institutional statement. The stringent rules I set for my children apply to yours too. When news of this situation first emerged in royal press circles, the initial interpretation suggested it was merely a reaction to the Prince Andrew scandal. It was believed the palace was in damage control mode following the fallout surrounding Andrew in early 2026. The assumption was that any semblance of nepotism would become a public liability, prompting a cleanup before the criticism intensified. While this perspective has some merit, it fails to capture the full picture. If this purge were solely about managing optics, the response would likely be broad and sweeping, executed by the palace's communications machine in a coordinated cleanup targeting many minor royals. However, that is not what occurred. This specific action points directly to one senior royal acting with precise intent toward one particular family. The decision to remove them clearly bears Princess Anne's fingerprints, not those of an anonymous committee or a polished communications team. This reality raises troubling questions about Anne's motivations. Was she acting on unwavering principles? Did deep-seated personal feelings drive her? Did she receive direct instructions from Prince William, who has been quietly consolidating his authority? Or could it be a disturbing combination of all three? It's crucial to consider that the true motivations behind her actions may be darker than simple grievances. The cold executioner. To understand Princess Anne's view of the Parker Bowles family, we need to look closely at her actions and decisions. Princess Anne has been close to the events surrounding Charles and Camilla's relationship. Unlike others who watched from afar, she experienced the drama firsthand. Anne witnessed Diana's struggles and the collapse of her marriage to Charles, which damaged the royal family. After this, she spent years working quietly to help the monarchy recover. Anne keeps her thoughts private and doesn't share them publicly. Instead, she shows her feelings through her actions. She doesn't speak to the press, give interviews, or make public statements. Instead, she makes choices that reveal her views. For instance, when Charles and Camilla married in 2005, Anne attended the wedding and stayed silent. She has never criticized Camilla in public. However, she maintains a distance from the Parker Bowles family. She doesn't engage with them at events or support them in royal duties. This distance is intentional. Anne and Charles grew up together, and they understand the monarchy deeply. Anne works hard and takes her duties seriously without seeking public approval. The real issue for Anne arose when Camilla's family started appearing at royal events. Anne sees this as a problem for the monarchy. After many years of feeling this way, Anne finally took action, especially as the palace faced public pressure. Her patience and careful planning show she is strategic, not impulsive. Anne is committed to the royal institution and acts to protect it. The king's ultimate betrayal. Princess Anne has clear thoughts about the situation, but a tougher question remains. What does King Charles think? He didn't just let this situation unfold, he approved it. How does a husband support an organized move against his wife's family? This needs explaining. Charles turned 76 in November 2025 and celebrated quietly with a small family gathering. This was very low-key compared to royal standards. Photos from that time show the strain he is under. He carries a heavy burden, dealing not just with the pressures of the crown but also with his health. Charles is undergoing cancer treatment, which was first diagnosed in February 2024, although the type of cancer has not been made public. Despite his illness, he continues to fulfill royal duties, attending many events and meetings. He works hard, showing quiet discipline that often goes unnoticed. His health situation changes how he thinks about his decisions. A king with health issues starts considering his legacy and how he will be remembered after he dies. He worries that family scandals, like those involving Prince Andrew, could hurt the royal image. When Princess Anne suggested removing the Parker Bowles surname from official royal lists, Charles quickly saw the need for this action. Though it seems like a betrayal to his wife Camilla's family, he chooses to prioritize the crown over personal feelings. Charles loves Camilla and has faced much public scrutiny for their relationship. However, he believes that allowing her family to be more visible in the royal context is not sustainable. In the end, his devotion to the crown takes precedence over family ties. The heir's invisible hand. We now come to a crucial point that palace insiders keep discussing quietly. It's about a name you probably thought of early on: Prince William. Over the past year, William's power within the palace has grown significantly. He has gained nearly total control. King Charles has been careful in handing over responsibilities. In 2025, he officially allowed William and Catherine to grant royal warrants, a significant privilege that monarchs usually keep to themselves until they pass away. Charles has quickly positioned William as the clear future leader, moving beyond the usual heir-in-waiting narrative. According to several concerned sources, Charles has been giving William more influence over the direction of the royal institution. William is now effectively managing operations, making it clear that anyone without a direct role could be seen as a liability. He has used this strict approach to remove Andrew's household and reconsider security for less important family members, including the Parker Bowles family, which he thinks is unnecessary. A key question is, why did William involve Princess Anne in this process? If he wanted to remove certain names and Charles agreed, why not let the staff handle it quietly? The answer lies in Anne's respected reputation. She has no personal ambitions that affect her actions. Her involvement adds legitimacy to what could be seen as a harsh decision by William, framing it instead as a matter of principle. Charles takes a strategic approach by letting Anne oversee the removals, avoiding direct blame for the actions taken against his wife's family. This way, it appears as necessary action led by a respected senior royal. Another question is whether Camilla knew about her husband's involvement in the removals. Sources indicate she was not, and her surprise suggested she didn't expect these changes. Charles and Anne have a deep connection, shaped by their upbringing in a duty-focused family. When Anne suggested this tough plan, it gave Charles a way to protect the crown without directly confronting Camilla, allowing him to avoid a difficult conversation. The claustrophobic trap. Camilla has lost more than just 5 names from a list. While she is still the queen consort and has royal duties, there is a big difference between having a title and having real influence. The support that typically comes from being close to the king has been quietly taken away. Tom Parker Bowles lost not only a title, but also the benefits that came with his mother's royal position, like quick responses to calls and easy access to invitations. These advantages were never written down, but they mattered. When names fall off the right lists, the impact is not always obvious. Still, it shows up in delays and missing invitations, creating a painful uncertainty about being forgotten or intentionally excluded. This emotional pain can be very cruel since there's no way to address it directly. Laura Lopes feels this loss differently. Her connection to royal life gave her access to private family events and smooth movement through the palace. Camilla's presence in smaller, important family gatherings has now changed. In a family where status is crucial, any uncertainty is risky. The recent removal of 3 family names has shattered the carefully built image of the Parker-Bowles family as legitimate members of the royal circle. Camilla's situation is now fragile. Charles, her ally, seems to have allowed this recent change, making it hard for her to seek support without feeling embarrassed. William, who interacts with Camilla in a civil but cool manner, carries his own trauma from losing Diana. This history affects his relationship with Camilla, making it about Diana rather than her. Camilla faces a tough reality where William's support system seems to be turning against her family, leaving her isolated and at a critical point emotionally. William, now 15, matured significantly after losing his mother. He believes the royal family should be smaller and based on hard work. Then there's his aunt, who has a strong reputation and a disciplined approach to royal life. She has supported these ideas for 50 years. Diana and Anne's influence is pushing the royal family toward these ideals. When these two strong forces align, the people caught in the middle, like the Parker-Bowles family, are at risk without even realizing it until it's too late. What Camilla might not have expected is Catherine. Catherine has quickly increased her role in the palace, surprising many. Her recovery from cancer treatment in 2024 brought her a lot of public support, which has given her real authority. When people admire you publicly, they are likely to support you behind the scenes. Catherine has used this support wisely. She is playing a major role in managing the fallout from Andrew's issues and working on public responses alongside William as a true partner, not just backup. For Camilla, this is quietly scary. Their public interactions seem friendly, but the reality is tough to ignore. The woman gaining power in the palace is not Camilla's ally. She is likely her successor. Each move Catherine makes towards power changes Camilla's role. The pressure on Camilla is increasing. Her best support comes from outside the palace, her sister, Annabelle Elliot. Annabelle was let go from her job when William took over the Duchy of Cornwall. She understands the pain of exclusion, and she and Camilla often talk. However, Annabelle can no longer provide the same level of protected advice she once did. Then there's Sarah Ferguson, who remains a concern. Camilla and Sarah have stayed friends despite pressure to separate. When Sarah's name appeared in the Epstein documents in early 2026, the pressure on Camilla grew significantly. William sees this friendship as a major issue for Camilla. Yet Camilla hasn't ended the friendship, which is becoming costly for her. Each time Sarah's name is mentioned in connection with the Epstein case, it gets harder for palace advisors to justify Camilla's choice to maintain that friendship. The situation is becoming clear. Charles supports Camilla but is compromised. William is focused on reform, not on protecting Camilla's family. Catherine is gaining power and limiting Camilla's options. Annabelle is pushed aside and Sarah is a growing problem. The pressure is mounting around Camilla now more than ever since she became queen consort. She has survived difficult situations before, but she has never faced one where the pressure comes from so many powerful sources at once. The most troubling part is that the person moving against her family has the quiet support of her own husband. This pressure is intense and may break someone. So who is really in control of the palace? Is it Charles working from the shadows? Is it William leading the charge? Or is it Princess Anne finally making changes after years of silence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember to subscribe. The palace underestimated the impact of 5 deleted names. They are about to learn that silence can speak volumes.